Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Everything that we see in this world, everything we encounter in this world is a story. And we use stories to try to explain things that we don't understand. For instance, if you know Jesus, you don't have to tell stories about Jesus because that knowing is beyond form. That knowing is beyond stories. If you know Muhammad, you don't need to tell stories about Muhammad to understand him because that knowing is beyond form. That knowing is beyond stories. If you know Moses, you don't have to tell stories about Moses because that knowing is beyond form. That knowing is understood at a deeper level than form. If you knew a ketub and you truly understood the nature of what the ketub is, you don't need to tell stories about the ketub because you know it on an inner level, not an outer level, not a level of form. So in this world, we are constantly trying to explain the formless mysteries with form. Why? Because we can't understand formlessness, because we don't see formlessness, because we don't know the nature of formlessness, because we don't know the true nature of light and that station that is without form. In this world, there is the school of dreams and there is the school of truth. The school of dreams talks about the world of form and describes the world of form and tells you about the world of form, and people live in that world of form as if it were real. But there is also the school of truth, which exists simultaneously, adjacent to that world of dreams, that world of illusion. Yet, for whatever reason, most men cannot break through that world of illusion to enter into that world of truth. We live in a false body that is subject to life and death. Yet, we don't understand the nature of the body. We don't understand the nature of our creation. We don't understand that within this body, there is a reality that cannot be understood by way of the outer shell of the body. Reality is not going to be understood through form. You can't live in form and give your life over to form and at the same time know truth. Look at clouds in the sky. They move, they change color, they change hues, they continually change, they change shape. Our life is like those clouds. It moves, it changes shape, it changes colors, it changes hues. And we see that as real, yet, in fact, it is not real. Take a seed. You plant a seed, and you expect it to grow. But the seed has a limit, and the seed has a time, and that one seed will not be able to sustain you. If you bring water to water your plants, eventually that water is going to dry out. When whatever you bring to keep things going is going to dissipate. It's going to dry out. These things cannot sustain you. God, on the other hand, has given you everything. God, on the other hand, has brought everything to you and has made everything available to you. But we don't see the gifts that God has given us. Instead, we look at the world and we look at the forms within the world and we look at them as if they are going to sustain us. And in truth, they cannot sustain us. And we have to understand that. To believe that we can be sustained by the things of the world is ignorance, it's illusion. And understand that if you believe in the things of the world, when the things of the world end, and all of them will end, you will end along with them. There is constant change in the world because things come and go. But somehow we need to stop depending on these outer things and have to begin to develop an understanding of the inner things. We have to understand what Allah is. We have to understand what Allah has and what Allah does not have. We have to understand His nature. Now, interestingly enough, He has no possessions. He has no need for anything. He just is what He is. He is this great power. And even though we can't see Him, and even though it is difficult for us to describe Him, and even though what we know about Him is His qualities, we can always depend on Him. He is everywhere. He is omnipresent. He is within everything, and He stays within everything. And He is constantly giving to us. He doesn't hold anything back. He doesn't keep anything for Himself. He has given everything to us. And when we begin to understand that He has given everything to us, then we can begin to understand the relationship between ourselves and the dream world and ourselves and the real world. If we cannot make this differentiation, if we can't make this breakthrough, then we are not ever going to be able to understand the true nature of Allah, the true nature of ourselves, and the true nature of existence. There are so many possessions that we have in the world. There are so many different things that we accumulate. We accumulate homes, we accumulate cars, we accumulate furniture, we accumulate wealth, we accumulate so many different things. Once there was a prince who was raised in splendor in the confines of his princely estate. And his father, the king, would not let him see the difficulties in the world. But he also wanted him to learn truth. And he knew he wasn't capable of teaching him truth. So he sent him on a journey to meet a holy man. And the wagon or the carriage came to get him and took him on this journey to meet the holy man so he could learn about truth. And he entered the carriage and they began to ride, and they rode for a day and a second day and a third day and a fourth day. And finally, they came to a woods and they began to ride through the woods. And they came to a little house in the woods. And the carriage driver said to the prince, "We're here." And the prince got out of the carriage and knocked on the door, and he heard a faint come in, and he opened the door and walked in. And what he saw when he walked in was an empty room, except for a small cot and a small table next to the cot. And he was astounded by how little there was there, having been brought up in wealth and having been brought up with so many things around him all the time. And he saw this little man who was sitting on the cot. And the first thing that popped out of his mouth was, "Where's your furniture?" And the little man looked back at him and said, "Where's your furniture?" And he said, "I'm only traveling through." And the old man said, "I also am only traveling through." And this was his first lesson in reality. And this is a lesson for all of us in reality. The things that we possess are part of the dream world. The things that we possess are part of what we are taught in the dream world. The things that we possess are what we believe we need in this dream world. But in the world of truth, we find that what we need is not at all the possessions that we have in this world. There is a connection between another kingdom and ourselves, as opposed to just this kingdom and ourselves. When I first met Bawa, my father, my birth father, was very ill. And I had actually brought him to see Bawa. And every time that I came to see Bawa after that, the first thing he always said to me was, "How is your father?" And I would always give him a breakdown as to how my father was doing. Then one day he asked me, "How is your father?" And all of a sudden it came to me that God is my father. And I responded to Bawa that God is my father. And he looked at me and he said, "Very good." Now, we have our parents on this earth, and we need to pay respect to our parents on this earth. And we have to be respectful of their place in our life and what they have done for us. But we also have to understand that there is a larger picture. The parents on our earth are part of a continuum that began with Adam and Eve. But through that continuum, at all the times that parents were giving birth to children, who was caring for the child in the womb? Who created the space in the womb? Who created the birth that goes along with this existence? And we have to break through this world of dreams, this world of humanity, and we have to break through to the kingdom of God. The kingdom of God is as close to us as our own jugular vein. The kingdom of God is the reality that is adjacent to our dream reality. The kingdom of God is right next to us always. Yet we miss the kingdom of God for the kingdom of the world. We miss the kingdom of God for the kingdom of illusion. We miss the kingdom of God for the kingdom of dreams. We miss the kingdom of light for the kingdom of illusion. And as long as we pay obeisance to this illusion, as long as our desire is focused on this illusion, as long as we pay obeisance to form, as long as we need form to define ourselves, as long as we need form to tell us who we are, as long as we use form to create our status within this world, as long as we interact with form as the mainstay of our existence, we are missing the world of truth. And that world is without form. And to understand that world that is without form is very different than living in the world of form. And our belief system has to make a huge turn, a huge change. We have to create new and different priorities in our life. We have to give up the priorities we give to wealth and we give to form, and we have to substitute the priority of the kingdom of truth and the kingdom of God. In certain religions, they have holy days. And these holy days are days when you are not permitted to work, when you are not permitted to partake in the usual form that you interact with in the world. They are days of rest for contemplation on the fact that there is a reality outside of the reality of form, that there's a reality outside of that which takes up your everyday life, and that there is an importance in giving this true reality time, concentration, and devotion. And you have to figure out a way in order to be able to do it. Everything that you learn in this world, in this illusory world, is like writing on water. Imagine forming letters in water. Before the letter is formed, the letter disappears, which means everything that you learn in this world disappears. Everything that you learn in this world, has no substance, because the mind, in truth, does not deal with substance. It deals with illusion. So everything that the mind learns, everything that the mind takes on, everything that the mind believes will eventually dissipate and disappear. And if you give all of your credence to that, if you give your entire belief system to that, if you give everything you believe in to that, you will disappear along with it, because you've created for yourself a world that is not real. You have to create a world that's real. You can't depend on this world. If you buy a cow will give you milk, but a cow will only give you milk for a certain period of time. And then the cow has a limit. The cow runs dry. The cow goes to the butcher shop and becomes a piece of meat. It no longer gives milk. This is the truth about everything in the world. It has a time limit and it disappears. We have to refocus our existence onto that which does not have a time limit, onto that which is eternal, and break through the illusion. And how do we break through the illusion? It begins by not believing in it, by not giving it the power that makes it real. If we don't give something the power to make it real in this world, it will disappear for us. And then that which is real will exist for us. Somehow, we need to blend ourselves into what is real. Take, for instance, a piece of iron, an iron rod. If you put that iron rod into fire, over time, it will become very, very hot. It will become like the fire. If you pull it from the fire with your hand, it will burn you. You can't pull it from the fire with your hand. It reacts in every way the same way that fire reacts. But if you get it out of the fire and put it aside with thongs or with something appropriate, over time, it will cool. It will no longer have that inherent fire that was within it, that the fire brought out in it. And over time, if you leave it outside of the fire, it will oxidize, it will become rust, and it will go back into the earth. If you take a piece of wood and you rub it and rub it and rub it, inherently within that wood, there's fire, and that wood will begin to burn. It'll bring out the fire that was in it. If you rub man, inherently within man is that light of God. And if we rub ourselves enough, that light will come out. And how do we rub ourselves? Well, for starters, we have to place ourselves in a belief system that believes in God and doesn't believe in the world. That's the first step. And then we have to rub ourselves. And how do we rub ourselves to bring out the light? We rub ourselves through bringing into ourselves the qualities that are God. And as we rub against those qualities, we become more like that. Bawa told us that wisdom is not learned through books, it's learned through nearness. It's learned through being close to wisdom. So how do we become close to wisdom? By being with someone who has wisdom and watching them and beginning to take on their qualities, to take on the way they do things. How do they react to other people? How do they interact with other people? What is it that they say to people? What's the nature of their conversation? What's their nature of their demeanor? What's the nature of the way they act? How do they respond to things? What's the nature of their patience? What's the nature of their inner patience? What's the nature of their peace? What's the nature of their mercy? What's the nature of their compassion? What's the nature of their kindness? What's the nature of the way they interact with the world? And how much of the world do they carry with them? Or do they not carry the world with them? We have to understand all of these things, and we have to bring out from within ourselves that inner light that exists within ourselves. And then we become carriers of that light. And then we are beginning to do God's work. And as we do God's work, God does that work for us. And that work becomes easier and easier and easier for us because our intention has been set towards that work. Our inclination has been set towards that work. Our belief system has been set towards that work. And we are no longer dealing with the dream world. but dealing with reality. And reality is a world of giving. What does God do? God gives. What should we do? We should give. The example of the apple tree is often used. An apple tree grows hundreds of fruits, many hundreds within one tree. There can be many hundreds of apples. Does the apple eat any of its fruit? No, it does not. But it gives its fruit to all of humanity. The apple tree is a mercy unto the world. Someone said to the prophet when they were fighting with the people in Medina that he should curse the people in Medina. And his response was, I did not come into this world to curse. I came into this world as a mercy. And Allah is constantly merciful towards this world. He is constantly an outpouring of mercy into this world. He is constantly giving to us in this world, and he doesn't stop giving to us in this world. We must begin to understand the true nature of who it is that we are. And we must give up this false identity that we have taken within the world of form. We must begin to understand that our true self is this soul that is within us. Allah has put a limit on everything. Allah has placed this limit on all of the things within this world. We must begin to understand what this limit means. We must begin to understand what destiny means. We must begin to understand what fate means and what in fact is destiny, what in fact is fate. We tend to believe that our destiny is made for us, that our fate is made for us. But in truth, we are the ones who create our destiny. We are the ones who create our fate. We are the ones who create which world it is that we live in. God has given everything to us. He gave us birth and he gives us death. He gave us good and he gave us evil. He gave us ignorance and he gave us wisdom. He gave us the ability to comprehend reality and the ability to live with an illusion. At each of these steps, we have to make a choice. He created us innocent, and he will take us back if we can maintain that innocence. In the same way that we came into this world innocent, we'll go back to the kingdom of God in innocence. But there is also the kingdom of the world and the kingdom of hell. We have to choose the kingdom that we want to live in. We have to choose the kingdom that is the place for us to reside. We talk about the horoscope, and we talk about the influence of the horoscope, but we actually have 12 openings within us. We have the eyes and the nose, that's 4, and the ears, that's 6, and the mouth, that's 5. We have the eye of wisdom and the kursi on the top of the head. Then we have the belly button, which is an opening that's closed, and the opening on the bottom, and the 2 openings on the bottom. That's 12. We see everything through these openings. We do things through these openings. They are our own horoscope. We are our own horoscope. There's also this six-pointed star within us, which consists of the five elements: earth, air, fire, water, and ether, and wisdom. And if we can develop that wisdom that understands the makeup of the elements and understands the makeup of all of the illusion that we believe in, and understands how to turn from that illusion and turn towards reality, if we begin to understand that, then we can find our true destiny. We are responsible for our own sorrow. We are responsible for our own happiness. We should not blame anything or anybody else. We have it within ourselves to bring the truth within ourselves. We have it within ourselves to bring reality within ourselves. We have it within ourselves to understand the nature of Allah and to understand the nature of ourselves. And we have to use that inherent light that is within us, that inherent wisdom that is within us, to bring about the changes within us, to bring about the truth within us. We need to give up the desire for this illusory world. We need to give up the temptation for the illusory world. We need to give up the magnetism to the illusory world. And we have to turn ourselves towards that which is real. And we can only turn ourselves towards that which is real if we believe that which is real. So what is it that's real? And what is it that's false? Form is false. Light is real. And what is contained within light? Allah's kingdom is contained within light. And what are the qualities within that kingdom? The qualities within that kingdom are Allah's qualities. And how do we understand those qualities? Well, we understand them because they have been told to us, they have been explained to us, they have been shown to us. And we understand them through all of the prophets that Allah has sent into this world, all of the manifestations that Allah has sent into the world that exemplify these qualities. So we need to come close to those who exemplify these qualities and take on from them those qualities. The ones who exemplify the qualities are a mirror for the rest of humanity, a mirror for humanity to see truth as opposed to falsehood. And when we encounter that truth, it is an overwhelming resonance that has the ability to change us. And to change us into what? To change us into what we are looking at. So when we see the truth can change us. When we see a manifestation of the truth, that truth can change us. That truth has the ability to form truth within us. And we have to give up all of our hesitation, all of our restrictions, all of our past belief systems, everything that holds us back from understanding that truth. That truth is what makes us real. And without that truth, we are doomed to the kingdom of hell, or the kingdom of this world, the kingdom of the temporary. And we have to move from the kingdom of the temporary to the kingdom of the permanent, which is God's kingdom. And this is a constant, ongoing process. And the world and all of the temptations of the world and Satan are in collusion to pull us out of the truth back into the world, to pull us out of reality back into the dream world. And we have to give that up. And we have to fight that fight. And we have to hold on to that truth. And in holding on to that truth, we become real. We become real. And what does it mean to become real? It means we become loving, we become kind, we become merciful, we become giving, we become joyous. We resplend in the effulgence of the grace of Allah because Allah has given us grace. We rejoice in the effulgence of Allah because He has given us His effulgence. We rejoice in the soul of Allah because He has given us the soul. He has given us everything. He has given us of Himself so that we may become His true son, His true daughter, His true incarnation. So we have to pray that this change occurs within us, that this change occurs within us every moment, that we are constantly moving closer and closer to the truth and further away from illusion so that we enter the light and react from the light. The way the Ketub does, the way the holy ones did, the way all of the manifestations that came into the world to teach us the truth did. We are of them. We are capable of being the same as them. And this is the path we have to follow. This is the straight path that Allah has intended for us. And may it be our path, each and every one of us. Ameen, Ameen, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.